What makes a portrait successful? What is it about some portraits that really seem to be alive, really seem to convey something about the person it's depicting? And which ones just seem like, yeah, that's just a painting of some guy, you know? I've been reflecting on what types of paintings I want to do moving forward, especially with regards to portraits or figurative paintings, and I want to briefly discuss something that I've been pondering lately. Hello, if you are new here, my name is Lauren. I am a self-taught artist. If you're interested in joining me along my artistic journey, learning with me from my successes and my mistakes, then feel free to click subscribe and like this video if you like it. So it all started, I was working on this painting of my friend with the flowers, and this painting behind me fell on me. And it got me thinking, oof, can paintings be haunted because I didn't touch it? I'm painting doors all the time. What are doors? They're portals, basically. Am I inviting some ghostly spirit into my dwelling by painting people behind doors? I don't know about that, but it did get me thinking. Why paint people or faces behind glass? Why paint people in a manner that distorts or conceals? In my opinion, people become more real that way, at least paintings of them. Something about it is more authentic to the person themselves than a mere realistic depiction of them would be. And why is that? Because one can never truly fully know another person. One's knowledge of the other is always obscured or limited, and that's just due to the nature of subjectivity, the interiority of subjectivity, that my subjective experience can never truly be experienced by another person in the way that they experience their subjective experience, you know? So interiority is always one's own and nobody else's. And this is why I think unconcealment is a fitting word for a successful portrait. A successful portrait in this sense is one that unconceals. And what do I mean by that? Well, to paint a distorted or partially concealed or obscured face is to make manifest what each of us recognizes when we look in the mirror, which is that each appearance or image or glimpse of ourselves is only that. It's only a glimpse. It's only a sort of poltergeist or haunt of our full self. It's a moment of an ongoing movement, a lifelong movement, one could say. In each living moment, there is implied a movement of life, a constant overturning. Maybe an easier way to describe this is the idea that in each moment you are a different person in a sense. But it's not that you're fully a different person, but that it's a constant accumulation of experiences that make you who you are. And even not in painting, even in writing or something like that, I think it's very difficult to summarize the entirety of what makes me me. And I have my own interiority to work from. So how the heck do I expect to do that for someone else in a painting, like somebody that I'm painting? And I don't think that's really worth trying. I don't think that's the goal of a successful portrait, at least not for me. And I also think this is partially why I found it easier, and I guess I still do find it easier to paint self-portraits than to paint portraits of other people. Because in self-portraits, what I am aiming at is not a full capturing of my entire identity. And I think conversely, it's the same reason why I struggle to paint people that I love or people that are close to me. So in the former case, in self-portraits, I intuitively attempt to discover or unconceal some aspect of myself that maybe was lying beneath the surface. I'm attempting to capture one moment of my own lifelong movement, rather than attempting to capture the entirety of who I am and what makes me me. Because to do this would amount to halting that movement, to pausing it in a way that, like that would be to say like, here's the entirety, this is an accurate depiction of this person's personality. Then the image of the person does not imply the movement. It implies a completion. In the latter case, so with portraits of people that I know or people that I love, I think I've found it more tempting to attempt to capture how I view that person or the impression that that person has made on me, which is in a sense a moment of their movement, but it's not the same, I don't think. Well, I guess I'm not really sure if it's bad or not. This is still something that I'm trying to figure out. What I'm getting at here is similar to what Stendhal calls crystallization. Crystallization is the mental process in the early stages of love in which one idealizes their beloved, seeing only their best qualities or taking a superficial impression of that person and just letting your imagination run wild with it. I often say that a crush is physical attraction plus a lack of information about a person. I think that's a good way of summarizing what crystallization is. It can often lead to disillusionment, either extreme anxiety about living up to your imagined expectations, or profound disappointment. Because inevitably, your beloved will not live up to your expectations because they're a fantasy. In this case, the other is not seen as an individual autonomous agent with their own free will, experiences, and perspective, but rather as a stone statue, a sort of mirage or blank canvas onto which one projects their own hopes and fears and desires. Maybe it's based on your experiences with the person, but it molds the other into a sort of rigid impression that when you inevitably learn more about the person and discover that they are more than the statue, there's going to be a sort of disconnect, a disappointment. If you crystallize the lover into a stone statue in this way, the object of your desires is not another person, but rather a sort of mirage or haunt of that person. So to fall in love too easily for love to everlast is another way of saying crystallizing one's beloved into a ghost that at best is just a glimpse into the entirety of what that person is, and at worst a fantasy that's completely ungrounded in the other person. So how does this relate to portraiture? You may be thinking at this point. One might think that any portrait painting is a sort of crystallization of the other or the self, as it makes permanent, in a sense, the appearance of a person at a moment in time. And I do think, yes, it is a sort of crystallization in a way, in the sense that it kind of pauses the movement into a singular moment and puts that on display. But I don't think it's in bad faith as crystallization in the case of the beloved is. The difference here is that a successful portrait captures the moment as a sort of homage to the movement. This is something that for me has been working in the background as I've been painting portraits, and I've just recently brought it to the surface of my awareness. When I paint people that I know, at first, obviously, I know I'm painting this person or that person. But as I'm painting it, and once the painting is complete, I don't think of it as that person. It's a moment abstracted away from the person, not in a way that negates their individuality and their complete personhood, but it's also not, I don't look at it and think like, oh, this is so-and-so, I don't view it as this person. It kind of takes on a life of its own. The moment becomes animated into its own sort of ghost, which still is anchored in the individuality of the subject of the painting. The ghost takes on a life of its own in a portrait, but to call it a ghost is not diminutive. This ghost of a person, or the moment captured by a portrait, implies the movement in a way that crystallizing the lover doesn't always do. So that's what I've been thinking about. I don't know if that makes sense. And again, my opinion is not settled on this matter. I'm still kind of thinking it through as I continue to work on this painting behind me, and also this one, which completely different styles. Here, I'll hold it up so you can get a better look. So yeah, as you can see, they are both in completely different styles. It's interesting to work on both of these at the same time, seeing as they are two completely different painting styles. I think I'll continue to kind of chew on this idea as I continue to work on these pieces, and I'm sure my opinion will change. But I'm trying to post my thoughts on these things kind of as I go and as I progress. Yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any thoughts on this topic, I would love to hear them. What do you consider a successful portrait? Is it something in more of a realistic style where you can really see in detail the appearance of a person? Or is it something more abstract where the specific details and likeness of a person is kind of obscured or distorted by a more abstract style? I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and yeah, I hope everybody's having a great day. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching. Bye.